Alright, we are recording for chapter 11 of The Voyage Home. Again, I went too much on rants on the first recording, so let's try it again. Um, so we do start following Jillian, who apparently doesn't go home. She tried to, but just kept driving off to the Cetacean Institute because she figures the whales are going soon. I want to spend my time with them than going to get some sleep in, so I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed when the reporters are here. Excuse me. Before she even decides to go there, though, we do get this line. If I could go with them, she thought, or if I could protect them, if I could tell them, before they leave, to turn and swim away every time they hear the engine of a boat, or the propeller of a plane, or even a human voice. So she's thinking about how she wishes she could go with them. And yeah, before this, even the idea of like going with them and diving into the Alaskan waters with them, that she would. So it is setting up that in her mind, she is ready to leave humanity and just be with the whales, which is kind of a miserable thought. Yeah. But, I mean, she's that passionate about the whales. She should be passionate about people as well, but whatever. Character flaw. We can just move on from that. But one thing that I highlighted this not just because of that, to mention that she is, in fact, getting herself psyched up. She doesn't know it yet, but to go with them into the future. I lost my train of thought because I need. Did I write it in here? No. Oh, that's right. That's right. When I was looking, I looked up. Would a humpback? This is back in an earlier chapter when she had her feet in the water and they came up and just brushed against her feet. I looked up. Would a humpback whale do that? And what was being said is like, well, actually, yeah, that does make sense because I have seen those videos. Humpbacks are playful and will actually just approach boats with people on them. So her being like telling them, no, don't do this, because they've only been around people, so they would be comfortable coming up to a boat. It's like, no, don't do that. It's like, actually, even wild humpbacks will come up to people. So, yeah. Sorry, the point's kind of a bad one. Have something that seems to be sort of a typo here. When she is finally beamed aboard, because she finds out that they've been taken away, slaps Bob. She thinks about how I wish I had punched him instead, which I mean, a slap can still do a lot of damage. I took a drama class once back in high school, and one thing that the teacher mentioned that if you don't slap somebody correctly, you can really hurt them, including breaking their jaw. So, I mean, not to say a punch, because you got that whole line there of force driving there, so that is going to be more powerful, but still, don't discount slaps. Yeah. But because of that, she then goes and tries to find Kirk, because also overnight she wasn't just getting herself mentally prepared to just let me just go with the whales, but also prepared to be like, you know what, I should just believe Kirk and let's do this. Let's save these whales. So it's like now she is completely turned towards doing them. It's like, okay, he is the only hope I have of saving George and Gracie. Goes there, doesn't see anything, but is trying to yell out to Kirk. Maybe he'll hear. But if only that damn helicopter would stop, making so much noise. It flies over. Why is there half a person over there? What is going? How will things disappear? Kirk, you must be here. And then she beams aboard, and we get this typo here. In front of her, Kirk James reached up to the controls of a console built to be operated by someone much larger. I'm guessing somebody was supposed to go to one of those, either Kirk or James, and just and have that removed, and it never happened. Yep. Makes me wonder what it would take to get a job as an editor. Probably would have to start freelance, which wouldn't necessarily bother me, but yeah, something to maybe look into. And it's just one of those things where why am I finding... Because this is, like, 50 years old. And errors in that. Now, true, making a new edition can be a hassle. But it still is. Is it not worth it? So Kirk brings her aboard. A little bit of talking. She gets introduced to Scotty. Gets introduced to Spock, what we introduced to. She now sees him without the headband, so can see the eyebrows, can see the ears. One thing that I found just odd, so he raised one eyebrow. Now Jillian understood why she had never met anyone like him. She had a sudden, irrational urge to laugh. She was standing face to face with a being from another planet, an alien. Probably, she thought, an illegal alien. Why is that line there? I don't know why that line is there. It contributes nothing. Like, maybe it's... In the 80s, it made more sense? But it's still, it's like, it's an alien. It's an extraterrestrial. You're on board a spaceship that's from the future. Why would you think his existence has, or his presence is at all illegal? So, they found out Chekhov is in the hospital, not considered likely to survive. Bones is run in, and Kirk is asking Spock what he thinks they should do, and I suspect that some of this is and this Jillian is Dr. McCoy, who's just been like, we can't leave him to 20th century medicine, Jim. So, and this is Jillian, and this Jillian is Dr. McCoy. Kirk said, Bones. He stopped and turned to Mr. Spock instead. What do you think, Spock? So I think it is he knows what he's going to do. But he's testing Spock to see, okay, what are you thinking? Are you old Spock yet, or are you still the very Vulcan Spock? Spock, Kirk said again. As the Admiral requested, Spock said, I am thinking. He continued to think. His face showed no expression. Commander Chekhov is a perfectly normal human being of Earth stock. Only the most detailed autopsy imaginable might hint that he is not from this time. Actually, there's a way to catch that. I'll get to it. I don't know if it would have been available at that time. His death here would have only the slightest possible chance of affecting the present or the future. You think we should find the whales, return home, and leave Pavel to die? Now, just a minute, Dr. McCoy exclaimed. No, Admiral, Spock said. I suggest that Dr. McCoy is right. We must help Commander Chekhov. Is that the logical thing to do, Spock? No, Admiral, Spock said, but I believe you would call it the human thing to do. There is also an element of you don't leave people behind, which he's in Starfleet. He should know that, Spock, but... So, I'm not sure if the term is antigen. I'm going to use that, though, so it is correct. I might be wrong, though. Every time we are exposed to an illness or something similar to an illness, because some vaccines, they are not the illness itself, but close enough for this to work. The immune system encounters it, fights it, and then somehow records that information one way or another. And I'm pretty sure that's what antigens are. You know, I should just look it up. Define antigen. An antigen is a substance that triggers an immune response in the body. So yes, that is it. Often recognized as foreign by the immune system. They can be found on pathogens like bacteria and viruses, as well as on normal cells, and are crucial for the production of antibodies. So the antibodies are what would then go and attack. Okay. So this is something that I know today we have the technology for doing this, where you can do an antigen test. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, there was even a reference to that with Sadak in Wrath of Khan. Antigens, and I'm not sure how much they are passed down, though. If they are, likely just by the mother would be my guess. It's kind of one of those things where... Hey, let me pause. I'm going to go on a rant here. Well, it's not really a rant, it's ramble. It's a ramble, though, but I need to get a drink of water first, so... Okay, so I could believe that antigens are passed down from mother to child because, well, it's in the mother that the child develops. Yeah. But it's kind of like how mitochondrial DNA is passed on from mother to child, and that's because the egg, being the larger of the two cells, it is technically more of a fully functional cell and includes its own mitochondria. Well, mitochondrial DNA would be complete there. It's not provided by the sperm. So when the cells are being divided for the after conception for the child to form, it would be the mother's mitochondrial DNA in the cell that does continue down into the child. I could believe that antigens, because of the exposure to the mother's blood and such, could also be passed down that way. I'm not certain though. Not certain. But in any case, because antigens are produced, they are produced in reaction to the presence of various illnesses. You could actually tell where somebody grew up, and even the time period that they grew up in, based on the antigens in their blood. Because, if it's like, oh yeah, in England at this time period, there's an outbreak of this disease. Well, we see that this person has antigens from that. Therefore, they must have been in England at that time and exposed to the disease. So if you were to look at the antigens in Chekhov's blood, you might find antigens for diseases that don't exist. And that would be a problem. I don't know if that existed in the 80s, though. That testing existed in the 80s. It might have, might not have. But anyway, going back to the whole thing with Savick, I don't know how it would identify who her parents were. Because, as I said, I can believe it would be passed down from the mother. That might not be true. I can't believe that. I don't see how it would be passed on from the father, so wouldn't even tell you much. And if it is not passed down by the mother, then just tell them that, yeah, she grew up on a Romulan colony. We already know that, so doesn't get you anything. Now, there would also technically be the possibility of scars that should be present but are not. So it's like, he had his appendix removed, but there's no scar from such a surgery. So it's like, okay, that's possible. That could also be a telltale sign. But then it's also, believe it or not, we actually have a way to remove the appendix today that doesn't leave a scar. They do it endoscopically, or at least they can, going through either the nose or the mouth or whatever, down the throat. Incision in the stomach, out through the abdomen, cutting at the appendix, pulling it all up and out. Considering where the appendix is and what it does, I could understand somebody wanting to gargle bleach at that point. And for those that are curious, it is one of those funny things where technically we do know what the appendix does. It's just in many first world countries, it doesn't really serve a purpose anymore. It harbors bacteria, and a lot of people are like, why would your body want to harbor bacteria? Well, because your gastrointestinal system uses bacteria. So it's possible that the appendix holds samples of these bacterial cultures. So if the bacteria in your intestines, mainly the large intestine, because that's what the appendix is attached to, I believe. So those can be restored if necessary. But it is one of those things where was that I saw it? I don't remember now, but it mentioned that, yeah, in first world countries, because typically we don't suffer from a disease or just a condition that would cause the bacteria, the microbiome, to be destroyed, so it needs to be recreated. The appendix seems to serve no purpose. But there are still third world nations where there are people where, no, that actually does happen to them. And then we see the appendix. Well, we see it restored, and it's like, well, it's possible that's what the appendix is doing. It's serving that purpose. I'm not sure if it was... Well, it could be just we know that the microbiome was destroyed, so it has to be restored. Where could it be? How is that possible? Where is the bacteria possibly coming from? the appendix stores bacteria. We know that, so okay, that must serve its purpose. It's just not a purpose necessary in various other countries. But yeah, so it is possible to have that, and it is technically an outpatient procedure as well, going like that. Still, not what I want going through my throat. But I will also mention this. I did once hear one thing. So I'm definitely going far afield. When a surgeon is working on your abdomen, they may decide that, you know what, the appendix is right there, so it doesn't cause a problem, I'll just remove it. I mean, they may need to ask you about that first, but still say, I'm in the area, I can just do it. It's like, you know, maintenance kind of stuff. But also one other thing that I do remember also seeing talked about was, because some people have the fear of, you know, like, you know, they're working there and it's like, what if the hole's too small and the, you know, the surgeons, you know, just accidentally like tear it open? It doesn't happen. The reason why is because in a situation like that, the surgeon will just make the incision larger to work in the space. And for anyone being like, oh, well, that's horrible, it's like, well, no, because an incision heals better and faster, and it's less likely to have a scar, I believe, also, than a tearing. So it is also legitimately better for you, and it's like, yeah, it's very easy to just add that extra inch or so. So yeah. Good Lord, why didn't they just bore a hole in his head and let the evil spirits out? This is when they get to the hospital and they found out where Chekhov is, and Bones has that reaction. It's like, he's talking about trepanning. The problem is, trepanning is a legitimate medical procedure. It is centuries old. Actually, it might be much older than that. I don't remember. But we have found skulls that show evidence of trepanning, where they cut a hole in the side of the skull, and this is a legitimate way to treat swelling of the brain. Because by removing a section of the skull, you are relieving the pressure. And, crap, I'm trying to remember. There was somewhere that I heard a story where the swelling of the brain was so bad that was basically, they removed entire chunks of the person's skull and just left them out until the swelling went down, then they could put them back in. It's, yeah, that's a hell of a thing. But no, trepanning is old, and it actually does work. And those same skulls, some of them, yeah, you do see that the person did die, probably more so from infection than from the trepanning. But there are skulls where, hey, see this? That's healing. The person survived. They were fine. So, yeah, Bones' reaction there is, I'm trying to think the best way to put it. It's an example of modernism where you just think that, oh, well, only today are people intelligent. Only today do people know what they should do. Only today do we have knowledge. It's like, nah, man, they figured out a lot of shit long before you were born. Potentially even before the language you were speaking developed into something you would recognize. That's how old some of this stuff is. So yeah, it's yeah. There's a lot of stuff that you can learn from that. That doesn't mean that it's always good and useful, but there still is a lot you can learn. Yeah. And by the way, also to add on with the trepanning thing, how most likely somebody would die of infection, that does also mean then that if they just knew to, say, boil the instruments involved, and well, yeah, they would have soap to potentially wash their hands to remove what bacteria might be on there, or at least contaminants, that alone would have potentially saved a lot of lives. Nothing to do with the trepanning itself. Then we get something more here that it's too wordy. All right, that's the simplest way I think to put it. Give us a couple of those masks, he said to Jillian. So this is McCoy talking to them, because they have on the scrubs. She grabbed some surgical masks as well, and now they've got a gurney, and they need to be able to get around in the hospital, right? So give us a couple of those masks, he said to Jillian, and jump up here. She handed him the masks. "Wait a minute," she said. "How come I have to be the patient and you guys get to be the doctors?" "What?" McCoy said, baffled. "Good Lord, Jillian, what difference does it make?" Jim said. This is where it gets too wordy. Jillian saw that he honestly did not understand why his suggestion would irritate her, and that gave her a view of his future that attracted her far more than all his descriptions of wonders and marvels. That is one sentence, by the way. And then she jumped into the gurney and covered herself with the sheet. So it's basically saying, "Oh, I like this. It doesn't seem odd to you that a woman could be a doctor." It's like, I get trying to make the point. Go ahead and make it. But make it more briefly. Because the more words you're throwing at it, so it's going, like, just trying to hammer that point home, and it keeps going and going and going and going. You're not an Energizer writer, okay? You're not doing that. The people that aren't gonna pay attention to, that aren't gonna like it, they're gonna be more annoyed than it just being there. The people that might be receptive to it, but you're going on for so long, they're going to be annoyed by it now just because of the length. So it's like, try to keep it shorter. There's also a greater dignity to brevity in many cases, I would say, so there's that too. But yeah. There is also something else. So I'm not sure what the case would have been in the 80s. But in more modern times, I'm pretty sure... I remember being told I was in a class, so that was in a college class, where the professor was talking about how you actually do see, in medicine, at that time, it was getting pretty close to 50-50. In fact, it might have been more so women, more women than men in the medical field. When you get down to just doctors, it may have been more 50-50. Nursing does tend to be more women there, but there are plenty of male nurses as well. I've known a number as well. But when you get to MD, just medical doctor, more so even between them. But there is one specific exception, and that is an exception that actually would matter here. Surgeons. Surgeons are predominantly men. There's two reasons for this. One is it takes a long time to do that, because you need to get your MD and you need to do more on top of that. So, if a woman wants to get married and have a family, or is already married and is considering having a family, there's a choice of, do I want to continue to study to become a surgeon? That's so many more years. Or do these other things that matter to me, like having the family. Yeah, this is going to win. Having the family is going to win, because it is a lot more time. Well, it's a lot more years, but it's also a lot more time. Like, it is a very focused and technical thing to become a surgeon, which is again something that it makes sense that there would be more men there, because this isn't true of all women. I've known plenty that are such exceptions, but generally speaking, the on average kind of thing, men tend to be more technically minded, and so getting into the technical stuff with surgery, there are more men there would be more men in the population of all men that would be comfortable and interested in doing that and capable of doing it than there would be women who would be comfortable, capable, and interested in doing it among the population of women. So, yeah, it is less likely to see a woman surgeon than to see a male surgeon. So it's like, actually, yeah, you being the patient versus these two that need to go into a surgery theater, an operating theater, it's like, sorry, it makes more sense that you're the patient. Crap, there was another point that entered my mind. What was it? Concerning that. Oh, yeah, that's right. Also, what I would call the professor mentioning that was, there's a certain bit of irony to it as well for men, more so, it being more common for men to be surgeons. The specialization of OBGYN, obstetrician gynecologist, that is actually under surgery. So that would be a reason why OBGYNs would be predominantly men, because they have to have that extra training to be surgeons as well. So yeah, it's kind of ironic there. But, no, true, that was a decade and a half ago about. Yeah. So things can definitely change, and it might be specifically OBGYN, so all of it together, whereas if you're just an OB, I'm not sure, maybe that's not in, maybe that doesn't have the surgery, need to be a qualified surgeon as well. I'm not sure, I'm not up to date on that stuff. Don't know why it would be. Not exactly my area of interest. But still, I got a memory that stuff like that is kind of interesting, I do just remember. So they get in there, and we get the whole. It's only the surgeon, only one surgeon in the theater, which makes no sense. Well, it's technically not a theater, but in the operating room, there's no description of it being a theater. Which there's an operating theater that does have the seats so people can watch, and then there's just operating rooms. No indication this is a theater, but in any case, you get McCoy and the surgeon there going back and forth, and the surgeon is not happy. No description of other people being in there, which is helpful for something that's about to happen that I'm going to tell you about. But it's like in the movie, it's Kirk is threatening them with a phaser. It's like, okay, well that makes sense. He's got a gun and is able to mess with them, mess with a large group that way. But anyway, the antagonist glowered. I don't know who the hell you are, but I'm going to have you removed. He headed for the door. Jim blocked the path. Doctors. This is highly unprofessional. The doctor snarled and tried to get around him. Jim grabbed him at the junction of neck and shoulder and caught him as he collapsed. Kirk, Jillian said. That never worked before, Jim said, astonished. And probably never will again. Give me a hand, will you? So he finally manages to successfully do a Vulcan neck pinch. Why he would try, I don't know. I mean, why? It doesn't make sense for him to try in this scenario. It's like, maybe it's just like, you know what? I got a feeling. Now's my time. It worked. Bones heals McCoy. Apparently he just gives him some regenerator serum because it refers to him closing up a vial. The surgeon wakes up, having not seen any of this going on. But it's just, like banging on there, and Kirk's like, crap, he's awake. He wouldn't have seen enough for us to contaminate the timeline this way, but if he sees us beam out, that's a problem. So that leads to them, leaving the room and trying to get to the elevator and all that. We do have the little old lady. It is a little different in here, but and also described a little differently that McCoy gave a lozenge to avoid dialysis. And when going by, it's just talking about how CAT scan says she's growing a new kidney, whereas in the movie it's fully functional. It says it's fully functional, so it's like the kidney was healed instead of it growing anew. Which I do actually wonder if that's reasonable at all, to just give a medicine that would cause an organ to spontaneously grow. I wouldn't think so. Plus, there's also that, yeah, that is true. Now, there's a condition, I have no idea what the name of it is, but there are people that are born without both kidneys. They just have one, which is fine. You only need one. Your body wants to, but only needs one. So in that case, then you could grow a new kidney. Unless it is that she had a kidney removed because maybe it was diseased, and that's why she needs dialysis. But it's like, it just being fully functional, it just repair it being regenerated would make more sense, would be safer. But anyhow, so we do have that in there. They, get to the elevator, going up. It's like, freeze, but no one's in there and all that. And they do beam directly onto the ship. In the movie, they beam outside, and it makes some sense because it does explain in here. They beam directly onto the ship, and Kirk leads Jillian out down the ramp and into the park, and then it closes up behind him because, yeah, they'll just beam him on board. But there's also, she's arguing that no, she should go with them and all that. You can't, on that. Next stop is the 23rd century. What do I care? I've got nothing but those whales. Maybe the whales here in the 20th century need you too. You can work for their preservation. Maybe they don't have to become extinct. And what happens then? Does that mean you won't have to come back, and I never will have met you? She stopped, tangled in the time paradoxes. Kirk, don't you understand? There are hundreds, thousands of people working for the preservation of whales. If Mr. Spock is right, nothing they do makes any difference. I can't do anything more. It's actually a good point. And I do like that as a further argument that her going makes sense. But there is also the issue, we don't know enough about her. In that, are her parents dead? It's like, she's just going to go missing. And, okay, who's going to ask about that? Bob would. She may have parents or siblings that, just some relative who may also be like, what happened to Jillian? I mean, true. One missing person case amongst many, it's not necessarily going to have that large an impact. But it still is. It is a reasonable question to ask who would be impacted, who would notice this. I'm trying to remember if there was any mention of her having a boyfriend. Not really, but I don't recall it being said one way or another. But to be fair, her personality, this may sound bad, it's not the personality you'd expect a boyfriend to be around. And not I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just she is, so focused, so obsessed with her work with George and Gracie that there would not be many men that would necessarily decide to be patient enough with her so that what little time she would allow for a relationship to be enough for them. Now, when they could find somebody else, especially because she might be kind of cold about it, or there might not be many men who would be able to distract her, to pull her away from her passion, which is the whales. So it would make sense that she wouldn't really have much in the way of relationships, romantic relationships. Some people are like that. I mean, certainly men as well. I mean, it's just her personality. Technically, you it could be read that way. That no, she would not have somebody like that. She connects to these animals. She doesn't connect to people, and she values her time with the animals more than she values it with people. So yeah, okay. So that's it. We just have the 2 chapters left and the epilogue, so 3 left. Kind of neat if I can get them all done tomorrow, because then tomorrow is still the weekend, so then I will have the week to be able to try writing the review. And then I haven't decided yet, but I'll still mention it now. Let this video be a little bit longer. I might decide before getting to the novelization of The Final Frontier, I might decide to let myself have a break. Because it's, especially with the written reviews in here as well, and how long some of these chapters have been by Vonda, it's taking out a lot of my free time, such I'm not able to write. So I kind of want to be able to take a break, be able to do other things, just relaxing with my free time, but also trying to do some more writing, and get back more so into that. I don't like only having the time to sit down and write once a week. It's very frustrating. So yeah, we'll see how it goes, but I want to finish the whole of the book. I didn't want to stop between Search for Spock and Voyage Home, but the whole of the book will end with the epilogue. At that point, I'm not sure, I might decide then to just rest for a bit, get to Final Frontier after a little bit longer. So there might be a gap between the end of Voyage Home and Final Frontier. Don't know. We'll see. Alright. Yeah, I haven't made my decision yet, but we'll just see how it goes. See you next time.